Welcome back, generals, to another Let's Fix Generals 0 Hour to make the best game ever. Good, so I'm currently installing the DirectX SDK from June 2010, which ChatGPT has suggested to look into for the render dock that may work for DirectX 8. So maybe we can dig into that and see any clues as to why the heat haze effect of the microwave tank would not render correctly. I never used render dock, so I have no idea how this will go. Okay, but before we do that, how about make a code let me look into this one here. Probably get to it this weekend. I plan to add a PR to properly fix the mutex and instance thing. Okay. I'll also add the replay playback thing with graphics. Expect both bigger changes. I'm planning a replay as suggested. All mentioned combinations should work now. Okay, that's cool. After a replay, is shown without headless, a score screen will appear. Pressing OK, then exit the game. If multiple replays without headless are supplied, a continue button. If multiple replays without headless, a continue button will appear in the score screen that allows the user to go to the next replay. I still need to fix the mutex thing. For that I made 1068, which will need to be merged. Okay. Command line parsing. Yeah. Okay. Already mismatched and builds from a month ago. It's the oldest I can access on GitHub. Okay, there's actually one other change. We should probably look into this one. That's the recently reverted decoupling. Into that. Around the same time, I slightly changed. I changed that to that. That's awesome. Version Y, X, AX, this, AX. AY, A. I suggest wrap this comment in the retail compatible CLC macro so that we can later find it and remove it. Later easily find it and remove it. This one is still using the other condition. So this is labels refactor gen ZH. Minor. Okay, I think there was one comment in what is this? Add missing virtual destructors. It is a draft. Okay, that is merged. Will anything else be splitted off? Will anything else be split off? Okay, so there was one more thing regarding I will rework the work the deactivation of debug help there. So it does not require touching the physical file. So I do not think that it's a good idea. Let's say a prompt is not possible full screen. It is also not necessary for NVIDIA GPUs, who are the majority of GPUs, majority of users who are which are used by the majority of users. That would mean debug help would not work on systems that do not have debug help in system 32. If I do not know if the stack tracing is useful or not. Better ways. If maybe could be removed, yes. Yeah, there would be another option to just remove all the stack tracing stuff. Let me see. Stack dump here. Some functions. Why is it showing me headers when I search for the symbol? What is this? This one is used. Yeah. It is currently used for some debugs though. Okay. Okay, there is one more thing. Here, this one, right? It fixes spelling errors in comments, removes tabs, and removes blank lines in some locations. It adds const keywords to some functions, but not others. Let me see. They area created. Okay, so he wants me to fix more. Game window. Hold on, let me first change. Game window manager. Game window manager. One 196. Use this method to assign the default images to gauges as the area create what? Use this method to assign the default images to gadgets. Use this, what does it even mean? Use this method to assign the default images to gadgets. As the area created. As the area created. Both sentences make no sense to me. Well, what is this supposed to mean? To gadgets as the area created. What is that supposed to mean? Two, 4, 8. 2, 4, 8. Singer. We Scott star clear the tab list, yo. Oh man, that was programmed in the hood once again. Clear the tab list. I don't understand what the sentence is supposed to be. It makes no sense with they, and the makes no sense to me, so I don't know. I won't touch this sentence. Okay, so he's complaining that that we touched some tabs here, but not other tabs. And let me revert all the tabs changes. Game window transitions. Game window transitions. Draw. Six, 4, 1. 6, 4, 1. Yeah, so we re-add that. We add this again. I have no clue what the okay, how about we just we revert changes that are not related to that thing. How about that? Okay, let me reset this. So I think we can revert this change. Parents. Why don't we just it will be hard to revert this, right? Because we made so many iterations already. So basically we just re-add all the spelling mistakes again. Yeah. Good, so set group. This one is supposed to be void. Find group was private. Immediate, put that back in there. Void. Return. Okay. Okay, so changes to the transitions has been reverted. This one is reverted as well. And that makes it a bit easier. Windows layout, I think we can revert that as well. Yeah, I think this is okay, we leave that. That's pretty straightforward. I think it's even necessary. Yeah, I think that was necessary. Okay. Let's see. Let's see what compiles. Reverts, unnecessary, refactors. Reverts now, unnecessary refactors in game window manager, game window transitions. Okay. We should probably disable generals and core. Yeah, let me cancel the build here. Okay. Rebuild solution. Right. I reverted or changes to this file. Good, that has worked, and let's commit that. Okay, let me push that. There's still changes. Game window transitions. .h. Okay. Ah. Plus minus. Okay, another try. Still. Okay, there were some tabs here. Jesus Christ. Tab, tab, tab. Okay. Three. Oops. Okay, now it's cleaned up. Okay. Okay, now I don't see the comments anymore. Right, I reverted all changes. All now unnecessary changes to this file. Quote reply. These were remnants of earlier changes. I removed that. This is required. This is required. This is required. I reverted this now. This is required as part of this refactor. double check that. Construct, deconstruct. That's necessary because we now call it here in the constructor and destructor, but then also here in here. Deconstruct, construct init. AKA reconstructing it. Is required as part of this refactor is these are called in constructor plus destructor and also in recreate window layouts. And the other one, the constants one, that was required because well, it was required at some point. Maybe now it's no longer required. Yeah, that is required. It is sort of required as part of this refactor. This would fail to compile if the functions this would fail to compile if the functions where the function was not const. Yeah. New codes in recreate window layouts. Maybe we can just say dot dot dot. Good. Then let me take a look at the install. Setup failed. Oops. Oh, that's unfortunate. It did install something. there's some stuff. Utilities. Picks. Huh. Okay. Picks win. There's no render doc though. Okay, let's see pick window. That's a really old one. Picks for Windows help. 2010. We can try that. Let me launch the game. Let's see what we get from it. Generals. This one. Yeah. File. Oof. Oof. That program came a long way. It looks really different nowadays. What is new experiment? What's that? A single frame capture of direct 3D. Okay. Enable draw timing. Okay. Start experiment. Aha. Can we say, can we put a command line here or not? Let me see. Start experiment. Cannot be found. Okay. So we cannot launch it with command line arguments. Oh, that's a bummer. More options. Key. Let's put that on F9. Yeah. Ah, command line. Okay. Wow, the process is ID 10,000. Wow. So good. And it crashes. Because of debug help, yeah, right? Right. Okay. So if we press F9 here, what happens? I pressed it, nothing happened. Let's try it again. Nothing happened. That's too bad. Maybe we have to quit the program until it's done. No, what? What happened? I don't understand what's going on here. Start experiment. What is this? What is this doing? It's not doing anything. Action. Grab screenshot. Terminate program. Post window message. Save device state. Single frame capture. I don't understand. Like, would it save it somewhere or? Like, what does it do? What does it do? David draw timing. I don't understand what this is supposed to do. Pix admin. So I don't see any render doc here. Extras. I don't know. Let's search for a render doc for DirectX 9. Render doc. But the render doc, yeah, it's only for the newer ones, right? Render doc. Fuck. Fuck. What is this comment? Okay. Okay, so I'm surprised that this pix here, it doesn't do anything. Okay, so let's say I press F10. Then we still start gathering GPU events. Maybe do it on... Let's do a F7. And on F8 we do stop. Let's see what that does. So F7, F8. Did anything happen? I have no idea. Waiting for profile process to exit. I don't know. Doesn't seem to do anything. There's a help file. Oh. It doesn't work on DirectX 8. Okay. Oh, well, that's a shame. Okay, what about the older SDK that I have installed? DirectX 9 SDK Summer 2004. What does this give us? Utilities. There's no pix here. There's only the spy. Okay, so this one is useless. No. Okay, let's try the spy here one more time. Run both the targets. Continue. Start. Path. That didn't work. Okay, and then what? What does D3D spy do? Man, these tools, what are their purposes here? Like, what can I do here? What is this? That's stupid. What is it doing? Now, okay, so launching and now I exit and now what? Nothing happened. I don't get it. Okay. That probably is some purpose, some higher meaning. And then there's these great tools here that are unclear what they mean. Effect edits, F-link, FXC, MView, Deeks caps viewer. It's capabilities, I guess. It crashes on launch. Okay, fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. Okay, I have no idea what kind of tooling we can use to debug DirectX 8. If there are any tools, unclear. Okay, so let's go back to our main slash pop. Maybe we can still figure out what to do here. So we figured that if we draw this shit twice, if we draw, we don't find it. Why not? Yeah. Why is this not found? What is this function? Good. So where are we? Here. So I don't know why it doesn't find this line when you search it here. Should find it. Should find it. Good. So if we do this, we see the effects. Why? Why? What happens on the first triangles call that we can then see? Let's take a look inside. Inside draw triangles. It calls draw. It applies render state changes. There are some conditions. Maybe we should go a little bit into it and see if like it hits like an exit or something like that, right? Maybe it hits an exit. Yeah. Do we have this unoptimized? Yeah, we do. I don't know why it compiles again. Didn't we already rebuild it? What is this? What is this? We need more code reviews. Okay, so I need to install it. Okay. Yes. We are just digging in the dark. Really? Yeah. Okay. Okay, there we go. Good. Then we step in here and see what happens. If limit and limit, we have no limits. So we apply the render state changes. Vertex count, we can't see. Goes in here, yeah. Draw index primitive. Let's step in there. We should, let me remove Gentoo here. Block. Okay. Now we stepped over it. Okay, so it calls directly into. Okay. So it looks like the calls do the exact same thing. Now let's take a look at apply render. Apply render states. Is there anything different in here? Material changed. Okay. Okay, so it did apply a bunch of state changes. Sure. I have no clue. I have no clue. No clue. What happens if the first call we just divide it by 2? Would it mean that only half of the guys would render now? Let me see that. Okay. Looks correct. So what if we divide it further? Divide it by 10. Like when does it say that it no longer renders? It appears to work. The frame rate is a bit fast. Let me lower the frame rate. It looks to me like that some of these guys are skipped. So it shows some smudges, but it looks like some are skipped. Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Why do we need to call it twice? Let's ask our friend ChatGPT. Um, are there any scenarios where drawing polygons, drawing triangles requires two calls to draw index primitive? Yes. Where drawing a set of triangles requires multiple calls. Draw triangles, which likely wraps it, yeah. Especially in older APIs like DirectX 8, below are concentration, index vertex buffer size limits. In DirectX 8, you're often using dynamic vertex index buffers, and a single vertex buffer may not be large enough for all geometry. So you batch geometry and draw in chunks. That's exactly what your smudge rendering code does. It processes up to smudge draw size per batch, then flushes. If you change shaders, textures, blend modes, culling, lightning between groups of triangles, you need to issue multiple draw calls. Okay, that makes sense. Texture paging. Draw geometry, blah, 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 blah. Smudge draw size. So here it says draw at most 50 smudges. Tweak value to improve CPU, GPU. Okay, so what if we reduce this number to 50? Yeah, what the comment says. And then here we say, we just call it once. Oh, that somehow works. Huh. Huh. What is that? Oh, that's weird. Let me confirm that. So the change I did now was reducing it from 500 to 50. Let me put that back to 500. Huh. Huh. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. That indeed fixes it. Wow. Okay. Now that is interesting. Okay, can we figure out at which number it starts to fail? Let's put that at 400. Let's go slowly down. Let's see at which roundabout it failed. I have no idea why it would fail. Maybe it's just too much in one batch and then it's just too much. But why that would fail, I have no clue. No clue. Maybe it's just too much information. A GPU cannot handle it. But, okay, so we now have 400. That is too much. Let's go to 200. That's still broken. Let's try 100. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, that also works. Okay, so at 100 it starts working. Okay. There's still some issue though, right? If you look closely, I don't know if you can see it in the video. Aha. When we zoom in, it stops working here for some reason. Okay, but that could be a different issue. But also, like it sometimes it stops drawing here. Not now. Okay, let's set that back to 50. Very interesting. Very interesting, yeah. I don't know. It still stops somehow. There is some other issue at play. I wonder if it has something to do with occlusion. Like maybe it's outside, maybe some of these things are outside the frustum and then it doesn't render it? Could that be? That's weird. So here it doesn't render. Here it renders. Smudge. So let me go in here. So smudge and render batch here. 46. 46. I have the impression that if it's less than the threshold, then it doesn't work. Could that be? If we... Aha. I think we see... I think I understand now. We don't see the very first draw. That's it. We don't see the very first draw to this guy. So we skip the first 50, but we will see the next 50. That's why it stops when we zoom in, because then we see less on screen. And so it only reaches draw triangle once, and that one doesn't work, but the next one will work. Ah. Okay, then why does the first one not work? Okay, but that's a clue. That's a clue. We can work with that. Why does the first one not work then? Is there anything different between the first batch and the second batch? Huh. Maybe... What if we did a dummy call here? Draw triangles 3. I think ChatGPT suggested this dummy call. Dummy triangle. Draw triangles. I now found that it is only the first batch that fails to render. The second, all batches after the first show correctly. What could be the reason for that? It strongly narrows down the issue. Well, I hope so. This kind of behavior is common in graphics programming and usually stems from initial state not being set up correctly or being invalid for the first draw. Vertex or index buffer not bound properly. Yeah, but this one is set. Sees garbage data. Set index buffer. Yeah, it's here, but that's fine. The vertex buffer is created dynamically. Yeah. Add a debug log or asserts after acquiring the buffer. To verify the pointer is valid, how do we do that? First log. Priming call. Sometimes older GPUs or driver had a lazy init quirk where the first draw after setting render state didn't work properly unless a dummy draw could. This is why your debug code makes it work. It forces a draw call that primes the pipeline. Try issuing a dummy triangle or tiny point draw off screen fully transparent before your actual smudge draw. Draw triangles, well. Okay, let's try that, but let's see if it actually draws anything to begin with. Okay, but we have now a much better understanding of the issue, so that's good. That's good, yeah. Interesting. Interesting. Skirmish. Okay, so draw triangles with 0. Does it do anything? It might just not do anything because... Okay, it does apply the states. Okay, it does actually go in here. A vertex count is smaller than 3. And it does some special conditioning here. wonder. Or instead of the first, perhaps it is the I don't know if that makes sense. Perhaps it is the render batch that is less than smudge draw size. Could there be some problem? If the first render batch contains fewer smudges, but the rendering code assumes a full batch size, this mismatch can cause. You're calling this assumes that every batch has exactly smudges in render batch quads with 5 vertices and 4 triangles. However, if the index buffer is pre-generated for a fixed max size, but this is smaller, then the index buffer contains more indices than valid vertices, leading to out-of-bounds indexing, undefined behavior. Fixed max size. But I mean, is it a problem if it's index buffer? Index buffer. How's this index buffer created? Index buffer is smudge draw size. Allocates 4 triangles per smudge, each with 3 indices. 4 triangles per smudge. Yeah. Every batch has exactly smudges in render quads times 4. Render batch. 5 vertices, 4 triangles. Actual indices required, not hard-coded by quad. You use 5 vertices per smudge quad, but only draw 4 triangles. Does the index buffer contain extra triangles beyond? Yes, it does. If so, and you're drawing all of them with not enough valid vertex data, it could cause first batch to be skipped due to invalid geometry. Bug on its inner for uninitialized times 6. What? Why times 6 now? What is this? Update your draw call to only draw triangles for the actual number of smudges. For the actual number of smudges. But it already does that. Smudges in render batch. 6 indices per quad. Drawing 2 triangles. Yes. That's a good idea. We can test that. Let me clarify the index buffer is allocated, is fixed size and allocated like so. More indices than valid vertex data in the first render batch. Your index buffer is pre-filled with indices for smudge draw size smudges, where each smudge is drawn using 5 vertices, yes, 4 triangles, 12 indices. So the index buffer contains 12 indices total, but when you render a batch with fewer than that, you're drawing some subset of vertices, but still referencing indices that point to vertices beyond what's valid for the vertex buffer. Okay, I don't understand. You need to adjust the number of primitives drawn per batch based on the number of smudges actually in the batch. If you're using something like that, that likely doesn't properly account for the number of indices, 12 per smudge. Instead, it assumes 4 triangles. Since you have 12 indices per smudge, each triangle needs 3 indices. Each smudge, 4 triangles. Times 12? Okay, but it's a good lead. Maybe there's something wrong with the amount of data we push, right? For the draw call. That could be. I still don't understand, like, what though? Okay, so 4 triangles, right? On each side. Good. Gives us 12 indices. And 5 points. All right. Five times 3. Smudge draws 5 times 3. Yeah. Index buffer 5 times 3. Could be like a rounding error, maybe. Start index. Vertex count. Vertex count. Vertex count. Vertex count. Vertex count. Okay, what is done with this vertex count in here? The draw the draw triangles function looks like so. Draw triangles and draw I can confirm the source of the bug. Vertex count. The bug, you're calling polygon count, but your index buffer contains 12 indices. The polygon count, the number of primitives, but is correct at 4 per smudge. You're missing the critical detail. The number of indices actually used, polygon count times 3. What? Polygon count. The index buffer contains many invalid trailing indices. Aha. Polygon count times 4. What? What is the suggestion? This looks the exact same as this. What is this? Index start. What is this here? First, make sure index buffer only references indices for the current smudges. You modify draw to offset properly. The index buffer only references indices for the current smudges. Huh? Okay, so there is some issue with pushing invalid data to the GPU. That seems to be the root cause. Okay, I still don't understand what exactly the problem is. I also don't understand why ChatGPT suggests this shit here. Smudges in render batch. Smudges in render smaller smudge draw size. The index buffer contains many invalid trailing indices. polygon count, vertex count. Vertex count. That's piped through right as is. Vertex count. Polygon count. I still don't see it. You call to ultimately results in a call to that. Index buffer contains many invalid trailing indices. Why? But your draw index primitive is blindly using the first polygon count times 3. Where? Okay, there's some issue with the buffers, but I don't see it right now. Index buffer. Index buffer. Does the index buffer need any locking or so? No, right? Actually, it does. I don't see what ChatGPT is saying here. Like, this is bogus, what it wrote here, because it's exactly the same. This also doesn't make sense to me. Like, why would we offset that thing? That doesn't make sense. How do we write to our index buffer in our smudge? Where's the smudge? Yeah. Do we ever write to it? Huh. Ah. Okay, it's basically the index buffer is prepared. It was locked here, and it just stays that way. Yeah. Okay, and the index buffer is this draw size times 12. Yeah. Times 12. Is that maybe a problem? I still don't see it. 0. We started off at 0. Yeah. Smudges and render batch plus plus. Smudges. Smudge. If we exceeded maximum number of smudges. Check if we exceeded maximum number of smudges. Is there maybe some error with how we flush here? Like, do we exit maybe at the wrong point? Let's see. Could it be that we... Smudge. Why smudge? Flush smudge. Why smudge? Smudges remaining. Count. Count. So we cap it at that. Smudges and render batch plus plus. Maybe there's some error here, but I'm not seeing it right now. Smudge is remaining. How about we step through the code? Count 1. Oof, that's little. Let's zoom in close. Okay, so the count is 45, which is just below our threshold, or the max size, let's say. Okay, so remaining is 45. We start at the head, fair. This one also set head. Okay, smudge is remaining. Count, then it caps it here, okay. And batch, 0. Sets, smudge, remaining smudge stuff. Smudge, why is smudge? One. Okay. So eventually it will enter here, right? Oh, it doesn't. Ah, of course it doesn't. Of course it doesn't. So how does it exit this loop? Hold on. $47. So smudge is in render batch. You know what is weird? That the smudge is remaining is never modified. How does that work? How does that work? Oh, there's one down here. Okay. Let's see. Remaining smudge starts. Then will be 0. Yeah. Yeah, it looks correct. Okay, let's how can we test the theory whether it's yeah. You can try manually setting. If suddenly the first batch renders correctly or the second batch becomes the first to fail, then you've proven. Yeah, it would be interesting to know if it's the first one or it's the one that is less than smudge draw size. I think that would be interesting to know. How can we figure that out? Um, how can we figure that out? I don't know. uh, uh, would have to. I don't know how to test that. It doesn't help if we just skip it because then that doesn't tell us anything either. Man. First smudge that needs rendering. First smudge set that needs rendering. I think it's really plausible that somehow we are pushing something to GPU that is invalid. But how? The first batch or the batch that is smaller than this. We clamp it here. When we clamp it, is there any favorable 45? Okay, so 48. 47, 48, 46, 47, 48, 50, 50. You know, I have like another suspicion here. I'm unable to confirm. Could the error be a rounding issue where could the error be a rounding issue where if smudge run is uneven, then the division somewhere, then the number of vertices or indices is not quite right, whereas if smudges in render batch is even, then the calculations are okay. So it's uneven then. So each smudge uses 5 vertices, 4 triangles, totaling 12 indices. Vertex count times 5. Okay, so polygon count, index count is polygon count times 3. Now, if smudge's render batch is odd and the index of vertex ranges are not properly aligned, the GPU might access vertex indices that don't exist in the current vertex buffer, or skip rendering silently due to out-of-bounds access. Problem scenario. Suppose the batch is 1. Draw triangles 0, 4, 0, 5. Seems fine. But if the index buffer was filled for a smudge draw size, smudge, let's say 64, then it contains 64 times 12. Your draw call will use the first 4 times 3, 12 indices. So it only works correctly if the first 12 indices reference vertex indices 0 through 4. What? Okay, that doesn't help me. Assert. But I have the suspicion that if the number is uneven, it doesn't work correctly. And if the number is even, it renders. So maybe there's like some division somewhere where the number is not quite right. Can we find that kind of division? Smudge and render. So multiplication is fine. Draw. Draw. But we are not dividing anything here. We take the vertex count and the poly count as is. Ha. No. Maybe the GPU has troubles with uneven amount somehow. Calculator. So let's say, so like for example, we saw like 74, right? So 70 times 4 is uneven number. But that shouldn't be a problem, right? I mean, so if we have 48 times 5, that would be an even number. Yeah, but the vertex count, I don't understand. But this, you know, like when I look at this, like like sometimes it draws and sometimes not. Even like I don't move the camera or anything, which to me indicates that there's some problem with even and uneven numbers. Otherwise, that wouldn't make sense. So, right? Or what only renders if it hits 50? That could also be, right? Yeah. So here, for example, it hits 50, right? Yeah, maybe it's that instead. I think maybe the uneven number is not the culprit, but hitting the 50 maybe is. Let me put a breakpoint here. 2. Okay, so it starts with 50 and 3. 50, 3. 52. Hmm. Hmm. 50. Okay, so. I don't think it's something with uneven or nah. You're extremely close. I think ChatGPT is just trying to encourage me, but it has no clue either. Yeah, it has no clue. Yeah, why would it? Okay, what else could be the problem? I don't think it's the uneven theory. I think it has more something to do with either reaching the second draw batch or having a draw that is less than 50. One of these two. I don't know which one though. Yeah, shit. If we scroll up here, I think we can like check that theory. If we get a even number here, we should see flickering, right? Yeah, so we see like there's some even numbers here, so we should see flickering, but we see no flickering. No, I can confirm it is not about uneven number, uneven batch numbers. It must be related to either a issuing less than 2 draw calls. Must be related to either that or issuing a draw call that has less than what is it? Less than this. Less than that. Yes. Test. You issue less than 2 draw calls. Mismatch between the static index buffer size, always sized, and the actual vertex count used in a draw call. You're using a fixed index buffer for that, but draw fewer. But why is that a problem then? This always start index 0 and uses the first n indices, where n is that. But your index buffer was pre-filled for the maximum number of smudges. So the first n indices assume the presence. Why? Index buffer was pre-filled. So the first n indices assume the presence of all. Yeah, index count in the draw call is based on that. The contents of the static index buffer might contain indices that go beyond. What? The contents of the static index buffer contain indices that go beyond the actual available vertex count. Less than the full buffer. Definite fix. ChatGPT is very confident today. You must make sure the index buffer being used only references vertices that actually exist. Why? Dynamically offset into the static vertex buffer. Start index. You must track smudge batch start or the start index for each batch. to verify, print the first 12 indices in the static index buffer and check whether any of them are greater or equal. What? Huh? I don't understand what this is supposed to mean, yeah? Print the first 12 indices. What? What is this? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, that makes no sense. No. To me, it looks fine that 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 maybe what we can do is just for testing. Wherever the where the index buffer is written here. So I wonder what happens if we create an index buffer, a new one, that has exactly the expected size. So just here we do a test, begin, end. So we put index buffer class, index buffer, And then we allocate it for count times 4. Smudge is remaining. Okay, let's try that. So it's count times that, yeah. And basically we just we create this guy here, yeah. So and then index buffer here, we would then say here set index buffer that. No? What does it take? Dynamic IB, okay. Dynamic IB access class, IB access, buffer type, type count. Okay. Block dot get index array. What is that? Return unsigned short. Okay. Good. Then we take that, put that here. Okay. Okay. Okay, so it's a different kind of index buffer by the looks of it. That doesn't work. Why not? Oh, I need to give it a offset 0. Good. Okay, let's see what. So this is more expensive now because it creates an index buffer all the time as well. Well, let's see what that does. Crash. Okay. Okay. No, that is unexpected. Indices null. Okay. Why is that? Type. Oh. I see. We give it the wrong. We need to give it this one here. This one. There we go. Let's try that again. Okay. So index buffer, yeah. Lock it. Okay, now we have a pointer and that works. Okay. Good. Let's see what happens. Oops. Oof. Oof. Okay. Well, that looks wild. Okay, so the issue still happens plus additional issues. Yeah. Fantastic. Because, hold on. Are we actually using this IB access? Yeah. We are. Hold on. Makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. Okay, I don't know why it looks that much worse, but that's quite interesting. Yeah. Okay, how do other functions work with this streak render? I don't know. I'm none the wiser. No. I'm none the wiser. Okay, but even if you change the index buffer, the issue still happens here. It looks worse. I don't know why it looks worse. It's not what I expected, but yeah, so this did nothing. This did nothing. Can we test anything else here? I don't have any other ideas, so I would just probably delete it again. Yeah. Yeah. What else could be going on? Set index buffer. I don't think that makes a difference, but maybe we set the index buffer here again, just in case. Okay, but we made a little bit of progress in trying to make sense of this, but I still don't see the error. I don't know what ChatGPT is hallucinating about there. It thinks it sees issues, but I don't see it. Yeah, so something is not right. Yeah. Okay, I think I would take a break here. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Then, yeah. I wish you a great day or night. Until next time. Goodbye.